Welcome to another episode of Off the Plugin Chain. I'm your host, Dr. Tom. So it's been a minute since I've been able to post one of these videos. As I mentioned in one of my previous episodes, I'm a full-time college professor and we're still meeting face-to-face throughout the pandemic. So we've had a lot going on, trying to keep everything running smoothly, keep all my classes going smoothly. And so I think I finally have some time now where I can start posting some of these videos on a more frequent basis. But what I'd like to talk about in today's video is how to organize your sound library. Since so many of us acquire a lot of sounds, a lot of VSTs, samples, all that kind of stuff. I have another visitor. One of my dogs in my lap and one of my others just walked in. Anyways, I don't have a ghost. This is a screenshot of the browser that you find in Reaper. And Reaper is a really cool program, but it's highly customizable. That's a really kind of cool thing about it. But if there were one thing that I would like them to improve, it's definitely the browser. It reminds me of the old browsers you saw in like the first generation of SoundForge way back when it was produced by Sonic Foundry. I'm not a programmer, but it looks like, you know, some kind of basic C++ or something. It's very rudimentary if you ask me, and I think it's one of the biggest shortcomings of Reaper. You would have to scroll through this browser here to see all your effects and everything. So not a big fan of the Reaper browser, but they do have one. Here's a screenshot of Studio One. Studio One has a browser, and you can actually it's got different tabs here. So you've got instruments, you've got effects, loops, files. So it's got a kind of the type of browser that it can basically emulate your Windows Explorer. Well, some of you I'm sure are on Apple computers, but whatever type of basic system browser you have, this Studio One is able to basically use that same architecture, and it's a pretty good browser. I like it a lot better than Reaper personally. Let's see. Moving on. This is the effects view. I just showed you the instrument one. It looks like what Studio One does is it grabs all your different effects and instruments and groups them by, looks like it groups them by developer, and it's all in alphabetical order. So that's a pretty good function. They're one of my dogs. She was sitting in my lap this whole time. Anyways, as far as browsers go, I would rate that Studio One's probably a little better than, or much better actually, than Reaper. Moving on to the next one here. Probably mentioned in one of my earlier videos that I was using Sonar for quite a few years, and then I don't know what happened to them. The Gibson Guitar Company bought Cakewalk, and after a few years, I guess they decided it wasn't cost effective to maintain Cakewalk Sonar, so it's become a free program. But I wanted to get into having a DAW that I could use, and I knew that was going to be maintained and upgraded and everything by developers. And Cakewalk being a free program no longer is being upgraded or anything. It's no longer being supported. I tried Samplitude, and I still run Samplitude too. Right now I've got 3 different DAWs. I've got Samplitude, Reaper, and Studio One. I primarily use Studio One, Reaper a little bit. I still have Samplitude, and I don't mind it. I like the other DAWs a little better. I think Samplitude still needs some bells and whistles. I think it would be a most ideal program if it had some sort of key switch utility. That would be nice. Anyways, the browser here that you see in this slide, this is the browser from the Samplitude. And bar none, I think it is the best browser of all of these, well, the ones that I've shown you. You got a tab there for instruments, and currently in this slide you see the tab for effects. And what Samplitude enabled me to do was, because of the way it's set up, I was able to figure out just a great way that you could not alphabetize, but you could group your different VST effects by type. And so going from the top, you got waves there, and waves is kind of different because it's got this sort of wave shell thing that kind of prohibit it from being as mobile in your computer system than your other VSTs and things. So what I mean by mobile is being able to move things around. What you discover pretty quickly once you start looking at these things is that you can move the VST DLLs, the drivers, and it doesn't interfere with anything. It's a lot different than when you just if you were to install software like Samplitude or something, it writes to the registry, and it's got a whole root type of setup and everything. And if you were to start moving things around, you're just going to screw up your whole program. But once you start delving into your VSTs, looking at how they're dispersed around your computer drives, it's really intriguing to me. You can just move them into different folders, and when you scan for VSTs, it just looks for a folder. You point it to a folder, and then it's going to then identify all the DLLs, all the VSTs in that folder. And so because of that, I was able to set up this system here where, starting from the top, there's nothing I got to do with waves. Waves has that bizarre shell, makes it a little hard to move it around. But I've got audio tools, bit crushers, buses and consoles, delay, distortion, drum replacement tools, dynamics, enhancers. There's a whole bit. And part of what helped me organize my VSTs this way was, if you go on the Plugin Boutique website, you can sort by software type and in the effects area. And a lot of these folders here have the same category names as you might see on, say, Plugin Boutique, but it helped me kind of organize my effects this way. So I know I was talking about sounds, but effects are definitely part of this whole process, organizing all your sounds. I would recommend that you all do something like this where you organize your VSTs. A lot of people will say organize them by developer. I think the better way to go is to organize by category type. So, under bit crushers, I've got Decimort by D16. I've got Crush. I think that's a free one. And so, the alternative would be that you list them by developer name. I know a lot of people like to do that, but after a while I found it more advantageous if all your similar effects were grouped by type. And so I've used this setup for quite a while now, even though I don't use Samplitude that often compared to the other DAWs that I have. Setting up my VSTs in this way, I think, was a really good step in being able to identify what I have. So you can go through each folder and you can say, oh, I've got 6 of these and 3 of those, and maybe there's a place where I need to incorporate or maybe acquire a different equalizer or a different limiter or something. And I think it's great, because when it's all just kind of thrown into one folder, it's tough to really see what all you have. And so like I said, I would recommend that you have some type of folder structure like this. Let's see, moving on. This is a screenshot of the actual folder location on my Windows drive. So this is, let's see, how would you get here? You would go to Program Files and then Common Files, VST3. And so this is where all my VST3 effects are stored on my hard drive. Again, you can see how they're all organized. And so, when I was showing you the screenshot from Samplitude, essentially it's using the same folder structure in the Samplitude browser, which is one thing. I think the Samplitude browser is just one of the best. Okay, so moving on, let's see. I'm a big proponent of being organized, period. I think it's what's really helped me be successful as a teacher, and it's definitely helped me be successful as a composer, doing computer-based music production. So I've got all my sounds actually on an external hard drive, and before I had any sort of solid-state hard drive on my computer, I was able to have an external drive. I mean, I'm still using this external drive for all my sounds, and it's 5 terabytes. I don't have 5 terabytes of sounds. I've got about close to 2 or 1.8 terabytes or something like that. I recommend that if you get an external drive, or if you get a hard drive, period, especially you want one a solid state drive these days, unless you're going to be running multiple orchestral libraries, and some of these are just enormous, like orchestral tools. They have wonderful sounds, but I have no interest in duplicating all my sounds and just having such horrendous, huge sized, instruments and everything. At some point, you got to weigh all the aspects you have, like your hard drive size, the amount of RAM that you have, processor speed, and all this. And I've got a lot of sounds. I've got a lot of VSTs, but I try to streamline this process as much as possible. And what I've found is that when you organize your sounds, and not only your contact sounds, your sample library, your loops, your VSTs, it makes you more efficient in how you go about producing your music, regardless if you have templates in your DAW, which is something that I'm a big proponent of too. But even if you don't really use templates, all your sounds are set up in a structure such that you can find your sounds really quickly, and you're able to assign them to different tracks and things. Now, what you'll notice in this screenshot is that I've got the strings at the top, and then woodwinds, brass, percussion. It's not quite score order. I've got the strings at the top here because those are the sounds that I use most frequently. Well, that and woodwinds, since I write a lot of chamber music. Apart from the way I've got the sounds organized here, I would definitely advocate or suggest that if you're using notation, a notation program, that you follow score order. And I use Finale still, and Finale, of course, you can choose orchestral score order. There's a few other ways I think you can set it up. I always opt for orchestral order, and when I set things up in my DAW, I also set it up in orchestral order, which would mean that the woodwinds would be at the top. So I deviate from that a little bit in the way I set up my contact sound library. Again, like I said, because the strings are the ones that I use most frequently, I access those sounds much more frequently than anything else, and so that's why I set it up this way. Now, ultimately, the way you organize your libraries is really up to you. Whatever works for you. Who am I to say? But again, if when you're working in your DAW and in notation, I definitely really would strongly suggest that you go in score order. So even though this isn't quite in score order, there's when you use a DAW notation, those should really be in score order. I think it's just a better way to work. Let's see. Now, this might be a little tough to read here. This is a screen print of the ADSR Sample Manager. It's a free application you can get from the ADSR website. At the bottom there, it says click to log in or create an account. You can use this free sample manager without even having an ADSR account. So I like this because it enabled me to organize all my loops. So I've got all my loops in this top library, and then the second one here is samples. So these are literally loops. And then this one sample library, that's where I've got more effects like hits and whooshes and risers and things like that. Those are all in the sample library folder. And so those all of those sounds, the loops, the samples, those are also on my external hard drive. And since I have 5 terabytes, I also kept backups of all my sounds on that drive. But I don't like filling up my hard drive too fast if I don't need to. And I like to keep, some space on there and, some room to grow and that kind of thing. So if you keep your backup sounds on the same drive as your sound library, it's going to double the amount of space that's taken up. And so what I ended up doing was getting a second external drive that I just use for backups. It's not connected to my computer. Typically, I just pop it in with the USB when I want to back up sounds if I get a new library. So I keep all my backups on a separate external drive, and all my sounds reside on the external drive that's connected to my desktop hard drive. And so this has been a pretty good system. I think it works pretty well. Again, I think it's just all a matter of how do you want to work, and I think that organizing your sound library, starting with your VSTs, including your loops, including sample sounds, and then your contact sounds. I think it's really important, you can really learn to work quickly when you've got everything organized like this. And those of you out there who aren't fond of organizing stuff, I think this is a really important step. And I'm a proponent of using templates for sure, whether it's notation or your DAW. But in a sense, like I said, you may not even need to use templates too much if you can just find your sounds real quickly and effortlessly, and it's a time saver. I think it makes you more efficient. And the other thing too is when everything's organized like this, like we go back to this one where I got my contact sounds. I've organized it. I've got orchestral strings and then other strings, and in other strings I include things like dulcimers and guitars and basses. You've got the woodwinds, the brass, orchestral percussion. So I've fine-tuned this a lot. I've got phrase-based libraries, things like Sonokinetic, pianos, other keys, choirs. So there's quite a lot here. I've got 19 folders, and you want to be careful how you set this up. I've had to make some changes to this a few times, and the problem being is that when you install your contact programs, you can then move them to this folder, and then you have to get onto native access, and you got to relocate your folders. And so you want to limit how many times you're going to do that, because your DAW and your notation programs are going to point to to things, and if you change the names, that can really screw things up. So I would recommend trying to come up with some sort of master organizational schema to begin with that you don't have to tweak too much, because as I just mentioned, when you set these things up in your DAW or notation program, the file locations or the programs are pointing to specific file locations, and if you move those things, then that causes a lot of problems. You got to reinstall or relocate and all this kind of stuff, and it can be a little problematic doing all of that. But if you set it up and you got a solid organizational schema, then you can really work quickly, efficiently. Plus, when you organize your sounds this way, you look in each folder and you can see what you have. And I was on some Facebook groups for a while, a few years back. Some were, I think it was Contact Sounds or something like that. There's a big group on Facebook, or there used to be, and I would hear things. There's so many people out there. They buy everything. You can get addicted to just buying gear, sounds. Some people call it gear acquisition syndrome, like it's a clinical diagnosis. But it is enticing. You get a new. It's like getting new toys. You get new sounds, new effects and things, and you have fun with it. But if you're just throwing it all into like this big basket and you don't know what's in there, then you might not know where you need to improve your library, so to speak. And when you just throw everything in one folder too, you can also forget that you have certain things because you overlook it. And so this way, when you organize all your sounds by instrument type, you can just click in a folder and see what you have, and you can figure out real quickly, well, do I need more brass, or maybe I need an epic choir to round things out, or maybe I need some more sound design tools or whatever. Have fun with it. Sure, it definitely it gives you in a snapshot a look of what you've got, and easy to get around, and helps you when you're writing, whether it's in notation or in a DAW. And like I said, it gives you a quick look at what you have, and you can figure out, is there anything I need to add or whatever. And say, I don't need any more equalizers, or I don't need any more pianos or whatever. And so I think it's really important to organize your sounds. All right, well, I think that's all I'm going to talk about today. So if you're the type of person who doesn't like to take time to organize things, I think this is one place where it would be time well spent for you. I think you would really notice that you can work quicker. You'll know what you have. You'll know what you need, maybe, if you need something else, if you can see all your sounds at a glance. So with that, thanks everybody for tuning in, and be well, stay safe, and keep being creative.